What are you doing, my boy? That's me. Storyteller. Jump in the blue.
Oh, I beg your pardon. My colleague, Dr. Watson, Miss Adria Spedding.
Oh, how do you do? It's a great pleasure.
There is a strange little phrase that comes up again and again whenever people praise a modern Dr. Watson. They say, at least he's not a buffoon. David Burke, not a buffoon. Edward Hardwick, not a buffoon. Jude Law, Martin Freeman, Vitaly Solomin. Finally, Watson is not a fool and is treated with respect. Which raises one obvious question. Who made him a fool in the first place? Well, for decades the answer had a face, a voice, a moustache, and a very particular way of saying Holmes. His name was Nigel Bruce. And for many Sherlock Holmes fans, he is the man who did terrible damage to Dr. John Watson. He turned the nummy doctor, a man of intelligence, courage, loyalty, and literary sensitivity, into a lovable but ridiculous old bumbler. A man who misunderstands everything, a man who exists to be corrected, patronized, rescued, and occasionally shoved out of the way.
Really, Watson, you've excelled yourself.
Has anything escaped me?
Almost everything, my dear fellow.
Huh?
And yet, the story is not that simple. Bruce may be one of the least faithful Watsons, but he is also one of the most memorable. On screen and on radio, he helped make Basil Rathbone's Sherlock Holmes iconic. He gave the series warmth, humor, and emotional softness, and in a strange way he became so influential that later Watsons spent decades trying to escape from his shadow. So today we talk about Nigel Bruce, the controversial Watson, the beloved disaster, the man who made Dr. Watson a bumbling fool, perhaps not entirely by accident.
Yes, and if you want to know who I am, I'll tell you.
Who are ye?
I'm Sherlock Holmes.
Well, in that case, sir, my name must be Watson.
The irony is that Nigel Bruce himself was not some soft, harmless drawing room idiot. He was born in 1895 into a very British, upper-class world, and before acting entered his life, he seemed destined for something much more conventional. Then came the First World War. Bruce served in the British Army and was seriously wounded in action. His leg injuries were severe enough to affect him for the rest of his life. For a time, he was even confined to a wheelchair. So, just like Watson, Nigel Bruce himself had known war, injury, and the physical cost of it. But the screen didn't want that version of him. Before Watson, Bruce had already built a career playing a certain kind of Englishman. Amiable, pompous, upper class, slightly foolish, sometimes very foolish, but usually charming. He worked with Hitchcock, appeared in films such as Treasure Island, The Scarlet Pimpernel, Rebecca, and Suspicion. And then, in 1939, he was cast opposite Basil Rathbone in The Hound of the Baskervilles. This first film was still very much a traditional Holmes picture. Victorian atmosphere, fog, moors, old houses and superstition, family curses and the sense of theatrical grandeur. Rathbone looked almost impossibly right as Holmes, sharp, narrow, elegant and severe. He seemed to have stepped out of a Sidney Paget illustration and into moving pictures. Bruce's Watson in that first film still has a functional role in the story. He's not yet completely consumed by the business of being adorable and wrong. Luckily, the pairing worked. Public and critics were raving, and so the film was turned into a series.
Murder, my dear Watson. Refined, cold-blooded murder.
Murder?
A few years later, Universal picked up the Holmes films, and with them came a very different world. By now, the Second World War had changed everything. Britain was at war, America would soon enter the war too. Cinema had become entertainment, but also reassurance, morale, propaganda, and distraction.
No?
England's in danger. Heaven knows what frightful disaster's happening, and you sit there calmly listening to the wireless.
Music has charms. Very restful.
That's got nothing to do with the whole...
Contrary, my dear Watson, it may have a great deal to do with it.
Audiences did not necessarily want a museum piece Sherlock Holmes moving through a perfect Victorian past. They wanted danger, they recognized. They wanted spies, secret weapons, coded messages, Nazi agents, and British courage. So Universal dragged Sherlock Holmes into the 20th century. These movies were brisk, economical B-pictures. Contemporary settings were cheaper. Modern clothes, modern rooms, modern streets, existing sets. You did not need to recreate the 1890s every time. You could use Holmes as a known cultural weapon and aim him directly at the crisis of the present.
Ah, you've put on a little weight since you left school.
You don't look any younger yourself, Dimples. How are you?
Fine. Come in, won't you?
And here Nigel Bruce's own memories become very revealing. In his unfinished memoirs, he admitted that the stories were modernized, while the characters of Holmes and Watson were supposedly kept more or less as Doyle had written them. But then he immediately added the real truth about Watson. Watson, he said, was made much more of a comic character than he ever was in the books. The reason was simple: light relief. Bruce described the Doctor, as he played him, as a complete stooge for his brilliant friend, a man whose intelligence was almost negligible. And that is surprisingly honest confession. Bruce knew what had happened to Watson. He knew this was not Doyle's Doctor, and that many lovers of the books must have been shocked, not only by the caricature of the famous Doctor, but by the whole modernized world around him. Holmes stepping out of an airplane, Watson listening to his radio.
Watson, there's a leak.
A leak? You mean in the council? But Holmes, that's impossible.
Bruce and Rathbone themselves were both much opposed to the modernization at first. But the producers made the commercial argument. Young audiences, they said, were used to fast-moving gangster pictures. They expected machine guns, police sirens, cars traveling at 80 miles an hour. In that market, they would be bored by magnifying glasses, handsome cabs, cobblestones, and the slow tempo of an era they never knew. And commercially, that seems to have been proven right. Bruce later remembered that the films were doing well both in America and in Great Britain.
Oh, don't you worry, Mrs. Hudson. Just giving her a bit of a clean, now we're on a case again.
As for Watson himself, in these Universal films he was forced to go all in with comedy that gave him a flair of an old lovable uncle who was wandered into an espionage thriller by mistake. Not a Holmes intellectual companion we all expect him to be now.
I say, Holmes, I never did trust any of those people from the start. Who? Those so-called good comrades. Where are you? You, Holmes, of course.
Be a nice little chat, Watson?
Oh, there you are. Stupid bird up there. Silly bird.
This way, for generation of viewers, the word Watson became attached to the idea of the foolish sidekick, just a bumbler who gets everything wrong. You can feel later adaptations pushing back against him. Granada's Sherlock Holmes with David Burke and then Edward Hardwicke almost seem to have been built on the correction. No, Watson is not a clown, he's not there to be humiliated. He's Holmes's friend, witness, conscious, and equal in human terms, even if not in deduction.
Because not the duffer anymore, but the good friend, the gentleman, the medic and the soldier, not the duffer.
In fact, Bruce's portrayal may be wrong in a way that worked beautifully for those particular films. The Universal Sherlock Holmes pictures are short, fast, and often quite strange. They're not sacred literary adaptations. Some are wartime thrillers or even horror films. Some are clearly propaganda pieces with detective decoration. They need this movement, contrast and relief. Rathbone's Holmes there was magnificent, and he's also sharp enough to cut the furniture. If you placed a completely serious Watson beside him in those films, the whole thing might become too stiff, too dry, and too pleased with itself. So Bruce gives the films oxygen in a way. He sort of softens Rathbone. He gives him someone to tease and protect, perhaps even someone to love in the only language this Holmes really understands, irritation.
You know, Watson, I have a feeling that when we go out of that door, a girl will be waiting.
A girl? What do you mean?
A young lady whom neither of us has ever seen before will come forward to greet us.
Holmes, now you're pulling my leg here.
And this is why even people who happen to hate Bruce's Watson often end up admitting one thing: the chemistry is real. Rathbone and Bruce feel like a duo. Not properly Doyle's duo, perhaps, but still. And to be fair, there are moments when Bruce's Watson is not as useless as the reputation suggests. He does sometimes notice things, and sometimes he does act decisively. Occasionally, he even helps or saves the situation. The problem is that the films rarely allow those moments to define him. The comic surface is too strong, so the audience remembers the fussing and the clowning.
It's my opinion that Mr. Sherlock Holmes was nothing more but an old herring gut.
You say that again.
An herring gut. An old herring gut. Oh!
Up to get you, worm. We'll see who's a herring gut.
It's a pity, yet Nigel Bruce was indeed a skilled comic actor, doing what the films asked of him. His Watson may not be very clever, but he's never cold. He's loyal, affectionate, safe. In wartime cinema, that counted for something. Imagine watching those films in the 1940s. The world is frightening, violent, and unstable. Then here comes Sherlock Holmes, impossibly calm, already 3 steps ahead of the enemy. And beside him is Dr. Watson, fussy and foolish, but kind, familiar, indestructibly decent. The Nazis may be plotting, secret weapons may be stolen, spies might be everywhere. But Watson is still there, making a mess of things, and somehow Baker Street still feels like home. That doesn't make him canonical, but it explains why his contemporaries loved him. In his unfinished and thus unpublished memoirs, Bruce remembers that at the time he indeed seemed to amuse and satisfy the many devoted admirers of the Conan Doyle characters. And for better or worse, his version stuck. The stickiness was also a sign of how successful Bruce was at creating a screen personality. In the end, he gave us a Watson people remembered, and no doubt argued about. A Watson later actors had to reject, rescue, and correct. This portrayal was certainly unfair to Doyle's character from the books. That is why he remains so controversial. Yet it is both the problem and part of the magic. Rathbone without Bruce would still have been a great Holmes. But would the series have had the same comfort and that odd domestic charm? I doubt it. In the long history of Sherlock Holmes on screen, that is not nothing. And somehow this foolish Watson of all Watsons became so impossible to forget.
And saved the life of my dear friend and colleague, Dr. John H. Watson,
Very nice of you,
thereby enabling us to continue our long and happy association together.